The Frankie G. Williams Gallery at Meredith College presents the 2026 Senior Art Exhibition, Dear Diary, The Stories That Shape Us. This exhibition features the work of our art department graduating seniors, each thoughtfully curating pieces represent the development as they undergo as artists and as young adults, navigating themes of identity, addiction, social issues, displacement, and religion. During their time at Meredith College, these 9 individuals have created an array of artwork that demonstrates their diverse styles, skills, and personal growth. This semester, they have been working together to prepare and present the pieces they feel best represent who they are, viewing the work as their visual diaries. Working across a wide range of media and experimentation, this exhibition highlights the practices of the Meredith College Art Department. First up, we have Perla.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you guys all for coming here. We all appreciate it very much. Okay, I am Perla Casiano and I am a fiber artist. So I am a studio art major with a fashion design and arts administration minor. So to start with, my mom on the bottom left, she actually was the one who introduced me into fiber arts. I saw her stitching servilletas by the bay window at home. And so I was probably around like the age of 8. And then by the age of 12, she ended up teaching me how to do them authentically from threads straight from Mexico. And I just fell in love with it. So I started doing embroidery on my own. And then my mom's former boss gifted me a Singer sewing machine. It was broken, but it was okay. I fell in love with fashion design, so I continued doing that. And then on the top left, you'll see Grace. She'll be talking about her artwork later on. She's my model with my very first garment I made here at Meredith College, so I was very proud of that. And then I'm currently raising a little fur baby who's going to become a fiber artist hopefully one day too. So here you'll see my very first embroideries I've made. So on the left, you'll see that the fabric is a little wrinkled up because I stitched too tightly. In the middle, you'll see the circle isn't perfectly. And then on the right, you'll see that the design isn't in the middle. And this was all great practice for my professional work that I made later on. It's not working. Okay, I clicked. It worked. Okay, sorry, y'all. Okay, so Calavera. This is inspired by the Day of the Dead. So it's a celebration where people celebrate the life and death of their loved ones. And for this one, I wanted to do people like paint their faces to celebrate it. And I saw something very beautiful within it, so I had to do that in embroidery. And I experimented with a variety of stitches, including the French knot, the woven stitch, back stitching, running stitch, the daisy stitch. I used as many stitches as I possibly could to make this. And I just love the colors. And this all actually inspired me to make flower crown. So women and young girls usually wear flower crowns on this day. And really loved it. And I was inspired by that to make my own. And originally, I was going to make it into like an actual flower crown, but I saw that it could be more than that. And it's like a wall installation now. And it just represents the beauty and the flowers that we have to use and we use to celebrate our loved ones. And for this one, I did experiment with new materials, including metal mesh, and I combined embroidery and cross stitch. Bodice. So I am a fashion design minor, like I said, and for this piece, I was inspired by that. So here I welded the skeleton of this piece, and then I wrapped it with yarn. So the yarn would get rusted before my actual fabric that I stitched by hand. And for this piece, I used a range of blues so I could add values within this piece. So whenever you look at it from all directions, there'll be a shade or a different value within it. So I am. This piece is currently inspired by the current administration, where families are being separated. I was questioning my own identity, who I was, scared for my family, for friends, other people, anybody who was terrorized by this current administration. And so I started questioning myself. I was like, if I come across them, are they going to slam me to the ground? Are they just going to take me away and kidnap me and I'll never see my parents again? Or my three brothers? So I had to stitch my emotions into this piece so I could just let that go instead of going over and over with the what ifs or what if this happens, what if that happens. So I was like grounding myself within this piece so I didn't have to be in circles and constantly troubled within my mind. So now this piece carries this weight for me instead of me carrying it. And it's very liberating when you do pieces like these and that they are very powerful and a lot of people can identify with it. Okay, sorry. So this is my Instagram. If you guys want to contact me, feel free. And next up, we have Lise Divine.
Okay, I am Lise Divine. Thank you everyone for coming. I am a studio artist and art historian, and my primary mediums are sculpture and printmaking. So my artistic journey kind of began before Meredith. I went to a really rural, like high school in a rural county in North Carolina. And so a lot of my exposure to art before going to Meredith was really in more painting and drawing. So a lot of my artistic exploration and my artistic career at Meredith sort of came with exploring a plethora of new mediums that I had no idea I could even use before I got here. Yeah. And then I also am really influenced by my art history major after making the switch my junior year, and that really informs my art making practice. So the first piece I'm going to be talking about is my self-portrait bust. This I made last fall in my sculpture class with Holly Fisher. Inspired by a lot of different things, music, mental health, a lot of, yeah. So the song Vincent by Don McLean is sort of my primary inspiration. It's a song about Vincent van Gogh. And it was also made at a time when I was beginning to go to therapy pretty seriously and learning a lot about like myself and my own brain. Namely that I have like OCD and that it's sort of affects like my day-to-day and understanding that I'm not like just crazy. It kind of felt like I was given a window out of things that I thought I was going to have to deal with forever. Um, Part of that is like number compulsions with doing things a set number of times. For me, it's 3. I could explain like the psychology and like the terms for everything, but I'm not a doctor, I'm a patient. So I was also inspired by art history, thinking about Vincent van Gogh. As a new art historian, I was sort of tasked with thinking a lot about the relationship between art and artists. And then I was really taken with the idea that Vincent van Gogh, who was sort of notorious for having these like mental health struggles throughout his entire life, was able to make really beautiful work. And just thinking about like when your internal world is really ugly, there's a lot of power that you can take back by making things that are beautiful. And that's sort of like something that shows up in a lot of my work, I think. This is my second piece is called I Look Up at the Gaps of Sunlight. It's a welded metal sculpture. I explored welding also in sculpture with Holly Fisher, and I really loved it. This is not a piece I made for that class, but I loved welding so much that I wanted to do an independent study in it. And so I made a series of 3 works, sort of exploring just a multitude of emotions as well. The title comes from a song by Mitski. It's called Francis Forever, which I do invite you to listen to. So the whole idea of this sculpture was capturing shadows that are made by tree branches to recreate sort of the ephemeral and like fleeting moments of connection that you can feel with nature. And then I really would invite you to run your hands sort of along the back wall that it's on so you can sort of feel the light and shadows interact on your skin and sort of just thinking about how that can be really grounding. Yeah. My next one is titled I Say Your Name and Hopes You'll Hear It in the Stars. Also another piece that was inspired by a Mitski song called Carry Me Out. Once again, please listen. Very good song. And this is another piece from that series as well. There's not really a great way to get pictures of it because it's on the ceiling. It's more interactive. Um, and this was inspired by the shadows that clouds cast over land that you can observe through plane windows, namely, and mostly how they're not able to be noticed until you take a step back and up. Please interact with it. It leaves really cool shadows on the ground. I want people to sort of interact with those and take away from it. And then I want you to sort of see the change in colors as you walk along and how that sort of represents clouds as they move around the sky. My next piece is called Imagination. This is a linoleum print. This semester I explored printmaking, which also reflected my interest as an art historian, my thesis on printmaking in the US and Mexico, and also like moving away from heavier subject matter and remembering that art is fun, and that's why I do it in the first place. And so this piece, I was just trying to capture how fun and expansive the creative process is. And doing that with fish and stars. So this is my last piece. This is titled "Oh Man." This piece is reflecting on a lot of things that brought me joy as a kid. I'm a graduating senior, which is like, I know everyone's gonna roll their eyes, but I'm thinking a lot about my life as it sort of led me here. And also like playing games on my DS. I've been doing that a lot lately. And it's really fun, but it's also very frustrating. So I wanted to try to sort of capture that emotion, once again, trying to find things that people can relate to, sort of, yeah. And next we have Emma, or
All right. Hi, my name is Emma Erb. I am a studio art major here at Meredith with a minor in psychology. I primarily work with ceramics, but I've also really come to enjoy painting, fibers, and then finding different ways to combine those materials together. So I would consider myself to also be a mixed media artist. So a little bit about myself. I was born in Illinois, but I've spent almost my entire life here in North Carolina as my family moved to Fuquay-Varina when I was less than a year old. So being in central North Carolina meant that trips to the beach and to the mountains were a pretty big part of my childhood. And that's what really kickstarted my fascination with nature and especially bodies of water. So that being said, waterways like rivers and the ocean have become a recurring motif in my work. And in my most recent work, I've been focusing more on capturing the movement of water to express emotions or tell stories or just reflect on personal experiences. Some common themes in my work are adaptability during times of change, faith and religion, specifically drawing from my Christian faith, and human connections and relationships and how those shape us. So to start off, this is my ceramic mosaic titled Currents. And this piece really just reflects my belief that through faith and perseverance, we're able to make it through difficult times and emerge stronger because of it. I wanted this mosaic to convey a feeling of peace, so I chose colors that make me feel calm and hopefully make others feel calm, and arranged my tiles in a way that makes flowing patterns. I also added yarn to connect the two pieces to kind of break out of that rigid boundary of the mosaic and allow the art to spill into the realm of the viewer. Up next is my ceramic fountain titled Embrace. And when you go into the gallery, you can see that it does work. The water is actually running. And this piece is a visual representation of romantic love and just everything from the initial rush of emotions of falling in love to the constant kind of give and take of a long-term relationship. And I wanted that moving water piece to create an immersive environment through sound and sight, again, bringing this piece into the dimension of the viewer. Up next is my ceramic lantern series titled Sanctuaries. And I created this series last semester during an independent study with Holly Fisher. I was studying the relationship between light and divinity within just various religions. And on a more personal note, I wanted it to represent God's presence in my own life just throughout all the different seasons, the highs, the lows, everything. So I was able to experiment a lot with rhythm and movement across different three-dimensional surfaces. And while I did that, I was pulling inspiration from both natural and architectural forms. So for example, the one to the left, sorry, I get my left and right mixed up. The leftmost one is inspired by Art Nouveau architecture with flowing lines and curved forms. And then, of course, the movement of water. The middle lantern is inspired by more rugged natural terrains and topographic maps. And the rightmost one is inspired by the Art Deco movement in architecture with bold lines and geometric patterns. Finally, my most recent piece is mixed media, and it consists of acrylic paint, cardboard, and like plastic pieces from grocery bags because I was really just working with what I had. And this piece, even though it's a departure from my other work in ceramics, it continues the theme that I introduced back with my ceramic mosaic about change and going through times of uncertainty. And my hope is that when looking at it close up, it's very chaotic and fragmented with colors that kind of clash and rough textures. But then from far away, you can see clear pathways start to form. And so it's a reflection of my personal journey with anxiety around change and coming to embrace that change while standing firm in my faith and the people around me who make me feel most supported. And even though it's a very personal piece, I also wanted it to speak to that universal need to find something to stay grounded in during times of change and uncertainty. And that is all.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Perla Jerez Hernandez, and I'm a studio art major minoring in art administration and art history. So, who am I? I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic, which, if you don't know, it's a Caribbean island, I know, where I learned how to draw and paint, and to this day, those are my preferred medium. My works are oftentimes figurative, portraying people inhabiting environments, which I later alter with different materials and painting techniques. And my practice is very grounded in my political beliefs involving feminism and equality. Expanding on that, main themes in my work include gentrification, mainly in tourism-reliant countries like my own, power dynamics involving class, gender, nationality, and immigration status, beauty standards and how they negatively impact women, as well as Latinidad and identity. So the first work I will talk about is a part of a series, which is completely displayed in the gallery, so I invite you to see it. I title it Feed the Economy, reflecting on how change happens as a result of unsustainable tourism involving the environment and involving the power dynamics between locals and tourists. So in this image, you can see two tourists who are swimming in shallow turquoise waters, very typical in my country, and they extend their hands holding food, feeding the fish who rush to them. Some fishes are painted with oils. Some of them are cardboard cutouts of plastic fast food packaging, not native to the island, imported, introduced to their environment. So, are the fish any less self-sufficient now that they have been fed by the tourists? Or are they being helped? In that same note, as you can see, we have plastic packaging making the fish as they interact with the tourists. Yeah, the plastic makes it colorful, vibrant, diverse. Will it stay like that? And is it truly beautiful? I leave that up to you to decide. These are some more details of how I'm introducing foreign materials and cutouts into the paintings. Sneak peeks, if you will. These are reference pictures for the next work that I'm about to show you. And this is just a funny story. It was my grandma teaching my boyfriend and I how to bring down mangoes from a plant in her backyard, and I'm still mad that I didn't manage to pull a single mango down. And as you can see, my boyfriend is holding one and trying to get more down. So you could say it's a skill issue. But in reality, these paintings titled Ya no quedan mangos bajitos, there are no low mangoes left, is inspired by a poem by Juan Antonio Alix titled The Low Mangoes. In his poem, he's basically talking about people who get things easy in life, people in power who don't do enough, and who use the resources around them and want things easily. But just going back to my country, seeing the situation, how locals earn in pesos and things start being charged in dollars, seeing how we have so many natural resources that are not available to us, makes me think, Juan Antonio, what do we do when there are no more low mangoes left? If this question resonates with you, if you have any questions about the work, any comments, I'll be happy to find you in my section over at the gallery once the talk has ended. But in the meantime, please help me welcome Morgan Knight.
Hello, everybody. I'm Morgan Knight. Here we go. A little bit about me. I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Before coming to Meredith, I did not do anything that was 3D work or anything like that. I did primarily just drawing, 2D works and stuff like that, doing like anime drawings and just drawing with like a pencil until coming up to Meredith, where I did exploration in printmaking and ceramics and fell in love with it immediately. Recently, I have been hyperfixated on the concept of addiction and then also following themes of emotional vulnerability, self-worth, identity, journey, and empowerment. So first up, we have lung cancer. This one talks about how cigarettes are damaging your lungs, and in the background written is lung cancer repetitively to show emphasis that it is damaging your lungs, along with like the warning signs and caution. The actual packet of cigarettes is a coffin to show that it can lead to death. And then Me, Myself, and Cigarettes is a journey about myself with addiction, not in specific of smoking cigarettes, but in just smoking in general. It's to talk about how it is slowly decaying your body. As we can see, we have one that's whole, one that's medium, and then one that's smaller. On the inside, you can see that there is ashes and that there are multiple cigarettes within them. It always starts with one, and then it can lead to more, and then it can lead to more, and a packet a day, and then multiple packets a day. And I just wanted to show this piece that it is slowly decaying your body no matter what, and it is, like I said previously, that it is slowly killing you. Flower is talking about the relapsing of smoking. Once again, like I said, this one is more of like a personal journey with my friends and stuff. I had friends that would smoke weed consistently, and just being associated with them, I got caught up in it as well. And so every time that I was hanging out with them, I would smoke with them. And so when I would stop hanging out with them, I would be clean. And that is what the top is representing, is the clean self, the purity that I had. And then the bottom is them when I am with them and stuff. I have cut them off and stuff like this, but the circulation or the cycle that you see on the screen is to show that the consistent relapsing of just smoking in general. Within is a piece about Russian dolls, or they represent Russian dolls, the ones that stack within one another. It talks about emotions and how we put up this front for ourselves. And within, we could either be broken, sad, and stuff, but we always put up this front in fear of showing people our true emotions and feelings. And then Growth is a water fountain series, or water fountain piece that I made. Unfortunately, it is not running in the gallery, but it is just a standalone piece. This one is talking about how it is hard for me to express my emotions, and when I do, it is helping me grow as a person. Expressing yourself really makes you grow as your own self. And then as we can see, you can't see in this picture, but there is a pot underneath of it. Once. Despite she's being in a pot, she is not confined to one space, and she is sprouting out, showing that she is still growing despite all of it and being contained into one little spot. So expressing her emotions and stuff like that is overall helping her grow. And help me introduce Grace.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace. I am a studio art major and an arts administration minor, and I am a mixed media fiber artist. A lot of my work focuses on or features moths and also sometimes butterflies, but mainly moths, as you'll see in the gallery. Um, and this is for a few different reasons. I love them for their symbolism. Personally, I use them to symbolize transformation, growth, and hope for the future. But I also think that they're really underrated, and I love witnessing natural beauty in things that we don't often see or get to recognize. So this is my first piece. This is an atlas moth that I embroidered and pinned in a shadow box. And this is based off the work of my least favorite artist, Damien Hirst. Um, because he is famous for making mosaic pieces out of unethically sourced butterfly wings. And I wanted to prove that you can represent the beauty of nature without destroying it. So my goal with this one was to be as realistic as possible. So this piece is life size. This is the largest giant silk moth. Not native to around here, so if you're scared, don't worry. Um, and I pinned it in the shadow box just as you would with a real specimen. And then building off of that, I got some feedback that suggested going larger than life rather than sticking to life size. So that's what I did with this series, which is still ongoing. These are just the ones I have currently. They are needle felted moths in all sorts of bright colors of the rainbow. Ideally, I want to have at least one for each color of the rainbow so I can have them arranged. But this on the top is a Spanish Luna moth, then a Western sheep moth, and a comet moth at the bottom. And these pieces are larger than life to blow up the pattern and bright colors that are so awesome. And it's just crazy to me that these exist in real life in nature because we associate things that are these bold, bright colors with man-made creations. But they're natural. And then lastly, this is a ceramic mosaic that I did in Holly Fisher's class this semester. And this was a meditation on the role of women in fiber arts over time because historically it was considered women's work. And even today we still see the effects of that where quilting, things like quilting, embroidery, sewing are not seen as forms of high art. So that's why this is in the arrangement that it is. It's in a color wheel because color wheels are associated with high art. And so I wanted to have the juxtaposition of high art and low art. And that's why the fibers are central to the piece. There's a weaving in the middle. And then I also included the moths as a personal symbol. Moths are also ingrained into the fibers world because they are the creators of silk and also known as the destroyers of wool. So some of the fibers that I included are actually ethically produced silk. as well as wool, raw silk fabric strips. And then for the personal element of this piece, I was thinking a lot about how I tend to gravitate towards things that are considered more domestic traditions. So fiber arts for one, and then I really enjoy baking, and I can't wait to have a space that I can care for and cook and clean and things like that, which is something that makes me seem more of a domestic person. So that's something I was thinking about a lot with this piece, is that I lean more into those things, but I am very much a feminist. And I struggle a lot with judgment or fear of judgment from others for liking those things and also being a feminist. I'm afraid of people thinking I'm a hypocrite, I guess. But yeah. And now we have Caitlin.
Hi, my name is Caitlin. I'm an art education major and primarily I'm a painter. Before coming to Meredith, I was mainly just a canvas and paint person. And since being here, I have expanded into ceramic work and just bringing other elements into a canvas painting. I was born in Staten Island, New York, but I do currently reside here. And most of my work focuses on mental health, relationships, memory, and I also am graduating this year, so that's exciting. So the first piece I'll talk about is called Drift. This was based off a painting my grandfather did, and it looks nothing like his, but I never knew he painted. He passed when I was young, and so when we got this a few years ago, it kind of inspired me to do my own twist on something that he did. And so it is like a boat painting. It just isn't realistic. But I pulled the colors from his piece. So he used a lot of like reds, yellows, and blues. And so the background is like this dark blue that he used, although it does look black. And then there's a lot of red and yellow throughout. And then the next piece is called Gilded Tears. It's a self-portrait bust that I did in 2025. So this was the worst. This piece is about like the worst mental health state I was in, which was like, I think 3 years ago. And I painted the tears gold because gold represents wisdom. So by doing that, it was me reflecting on that journey and allowing myself to heal and move on from everything that I was struggling with. And it's the same with the hair. I was like trying to move on. This one's called Lines, Lines. It was painted this year. There is no reason for the name except it's just a bunch of lines, and I thought it was fun. But this piece is more so about mental health again. I painted like a doorway in the background. It's black and it's more so like not letting the darkness or depression take over your life. So by painting all the lines over it and not going in, it was my way of representing that I'm not going to like give in to depression and I'm going to try to like overcome everything that I was going through. And then this piece is Electric Pink, and it sort of reminds me of like a map of my mind. And it's more so about like the really extreme happy moments, and that's what the pink is. So it's like when my niece told me that she loved me for the first time, or I got called auntie for the first time, or my boyfriend and I said I love you for the first time. So this was a way of me like representing those feelings. And then this was The Love That Made Me, and it's a 9-part series. So every person in my life who was there for me during everything got a canvas. So like my niece, she is on the top, that's Ellie's, and she loves to dance. So I made sure to include that somewhere. And then, you know, my stepdad, he got a recipe card because he loves to cook and his favorite recipe is lasagna. And then this one's called Why Not Pink? And there was really no reason for this one except sort of to reflect on the fact that each of my pieces have pink in it and it's my least favorite color. So why do they all have pink? So that was just my way of being like, I don't know, but I guess pink is just a theme, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Andrea Sindico. I am a studio art major graduating this summer, and I am both a digital artist and an oil painter. So first thing about me, I'm a Filipino artist, born in Canada, grown in America, raised on Japanese anime, 3 years of high school Spanish. And I transferred here from Wake Tech with a certificate in simulation and game development. And currently, I'm putting that to good use, creating a game called Viola. I am currently taking art commissions, and I'm currently craving Jollibees. I'm watching my parents and my brothers from outside. Hello. Anyways, I made a series called Food Love, and the thing is, before I transferred here in Meredith College, I was consuming a lot of media related to food. And what I like about that is food like tells you a story about the person. Like you look at their plate and you can just know what they're up to. And it also brings people together. And it's a universal language. It goes beyond like actual languages. If somebody's hungry, you know they're hungry. You can just and you can just eat together regardless of what you know about them. So my first painting in this series, it's based on familial love. It's breakfast. Here you have yourself enjoying a breakfast with your kid. She got all A's. It's a very nice breakfast, keeping dose of pancakes, omelets, bacon. Next one, it's platonic love. You're in an outing with your friends, playing Uno. Has anyone played Uno before? Yes. So you would know if you look at your own deck, regardless of the direction the game is going, you're going to absolutely destroy one person or the other. You could either snatch victory away from the one that's winning, or, you know, add to the other person's misery. And you can also see like their personalities. One likes sweets, the other likes savory things. And finally, we have romantic love with an Italian dinner. It's very nice. You have an engagement ring on your finger. The guy just proposed to you. And there's breadsticks, spaghetti. You're at, I don't know, Olive Garden. I'm sure you guys could name better Italian restaurants than I can. And finally, my most recent one, which was made last semester because the other three were of spring semester of last year. You can see my progression as we go through each one. This is dessert, and this is a form of self-love as you're in a dreamscape at the end of the day. It's completely self-indulgent. You're imagining like a conveyor belt of all the desserts ever. Of course, I had to sprinkle in some of my own Filipino culture with ube flan cake. And yeah, of course, this is my most recent art piece. This is what I think would be like the culmination of my oil painting skills, because before I transferred to Meredith, I was strictly a digital artist, but I'm proud to say that becoming an oil painter, it has become a part of my artist identity. So I wanted to do a callback to my very first oil painting, which is now sitting in the office of my godfather in Toronto, where I draw or paint a bunch of candy, and then I added the little hamsters like indulging themselves in the candy. And meanwhile, on my drawing tablet, I wanted to return to my roots as a digital artist. I had a lot of friends who did comics. I also wanted to do comics. The peer pressure was really there because I wanted to be cool like them. So I titled this one Janus. This takes place on a planet whose only one side of it faces the sun due to the gravitational pull, very much like our moon. And over here, you can see all the inspirations that went into this project. And I do see a bit, some faces of recognition for these works. And yes, here is the concept art. We have our main characters. We have an edgier girl who's kind of going through it. A timid sniper who's also going through it. And then that one guy who's like he's just chilling there. And yeah, if you want to look at my my comic, feel free to scan the QR code, which will also be on the screen in the exhibition. You can check out the website and then read all the pages that I made so far. And while you're at it, feel free to check out my website as well. Feel free to scan the QR code for that. Anyways, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Caitlin Ulrich Rojas. I am a studio art major with a minor in communications, and I do a lot of fiber art and 2D design. But with my recent explorations at Meredith College, I've explored a lot more in 3D designs. So here's a little bit about me. I'll tell you right off the bat right now, my biggest pet peeve is when somebody asks me, where am I from? Because I just don't have an answer. I don't know if I'm from Zebulon, North Carolina. Am I from Jacksonville, North Carolina? Am I from Virginia? I don't know. And the reason why I say this is because my dad was in the military my whole life, which meant that I had to move a lot. So I don't really have somewhere that I'm actually rooted in. Like, I'm already getting annoyed just thinking of the fact that a customer wants to ask me, like, where are you from? Like, I don't know. Why does it matter? Like, it's just so irritating. But a lot of the themes in my work do reflect on me moving a lot as a kid and as a teenager, which brings me to my first piece, A Childhood in Transit. I chose to share this because while the average kid is making their lifelong friend groups while they're in school, I never had that due to moving. However, I was still able to find myself along the way. The dark gothic makeup represents me hearing Evanescence's Fallen album for the first time when I was 8 years old. And like, it's just one of those things where like it alters your life, like kind of changed who you are. Like, I'm wearing black today because I still have like that rooted in me. The carnival in the background represents going to the many state fairs across the country since I've lived in so many different states. The American flag on my shirt represents me being a military kid, as American flags were often present everywhere I went. The ring around me represents me being a super big wrestling fan, and it's often something that my family and I still bond over. But not only that, WWE is known for its tribute to the troops, and they often recognize a lot of their service members. And it always stuck out to me because not many big corporations do a lot to recognize their military. And the trees represent me going outside and playing with different kids on the different streets from different states. This is my most recent piece, working in ceramics. I've never worked with ceramics before up until this semester, and it's called The Life Cycle. And everybody goes through the same life cycles. We all start off as an egg, and then we develop into this awkward stage of trying to find who we are. Sometimes we blend in with one another before we fully branch out into who we really are in our own unique self. This drawing that I made is called Smells Like a Sophomore, and it's a perfume that my parents bought me when I was a sophomore in high school. So whenever I smell that perfume, it brings me back to that certain memory of my routine, my friends, the area I lived in, and it's just one of those things where like you smell it and it brings you back somewhere. And I'm sure we've all had that experience with something that we've smelled. What I didn't know was that me being a sophomore in high school was the last time that I would ever like talk to anybody around my age, because I had moved from somewhere that I called home. And I went through a really bad mental health episode, but I don't like to speak about it. Instead, I'd rather just use it and move on and become a more resilient and more driven person than I was before. I don't like to use having a bad mental health episode as an excuse for things. Instead, I'd rather just work through it and turn it into a better version of yourself. The last one is called Woman in the Military, and it's a quilt that I made using fibers and embroidery and fabric dye. And I made this quilt to represent all of the women in the military who face inequalities in a male-dominant field. For my enlisted friends and their stories that they tell me, and seeing the cases that my dad did when he was in the military, and just being around there, women often don't get treated right. And I remember back in 2016, I went to my dad's office because he had to do paperwork overnight. And I remember asking if I could use the bathroom. And rather than having a women's bathroom on the floor, we had to go down 3 flights of stairs just to use one bathroom for the women. And in that moment, I realized how outdated a lot of their practices are and that there needs to be a change for a lot of the women here. And this quilt represents women of all races, backgrounds, identity, and rank, and gives them all a voice as they all deserve to be treated equally. And while I do plan on continuing my art career after this, I want to faithfully serve my country as an officer, not only to receive benefits, but to be a part of the 1% that creates change and difference for the future service members of our country.
Thank you all so much for coming. The artists will be in the gallery to answer any further questions. Please enjoy the rest of the reception. Thank you so much.